welcome back to the Beginnings Quilt Along. This is block number 5, Farmer Jill, and also we're going to be doing the sashing for our Friendship Star and 9-patch row that is in the middle of the quilt. Since it uses the same technique as what I'm going to do with Farmer Jill, I'm going to show you how to do that. So here I am just putting the blocks together. You'll start with a 9-patch, then do a Friendship Star and a 9-patch and a Friendship Star. And the last one will be a 9-patch. And through the magic of TV, here they are all sewn together. So what I'm doing is finding the center of the sides of the row and making a little crease with my fingernail. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the sashing piece, which is a 1.5 by 6.5 inch piece for sashing. And I'm going to pin the center. Now this is a short piece, so it's not as big a deal on this one. But on the long sides, it's super important that you pin this way, and I'm going to describe it as I go. So you'll pin the center, then you'll pin both ends. And as I said, with the short one, it's simple because you're only going to use 3 pins. You'll pin the center, and then you'll pin the ends. But when you do the long edges, and here I am pinned the other side, and then through the magic of TV, I will have sewn both of these sides on, and then we'll start on the long side. Now you're going to find the center and make a crease again, and you'll do the same thing with your sashing piece. Find the center, make a little crease, and then you're going to pin the center and pin the ends. And you'll be really careful because sashing, because it's a thin piece of fabric, it stretches really easy. And the reason I'm showing you how to do it this way is that sometimes you'll end up with sashing that's really ruffly if you stretch it, or if you try sewing it from one end to the other instead of doing it the way I'm showing you. So now I found the middle between the center and the side and put a pin in, and then the middle between that pin and the end and put a pin in. And now I'm putting a pin between the center and the last piece. So now here is the other side of the whole row. I'm finding the center. It doesn't have to be a perfect center on this side, and putting in a pin. And then between that one and the end, and I'm putting in a pin. And between that and the middle, and putting in a pin. And I'm being very careful as I'm moving the pieces of fabric. I've sped this up to double time, so you can't see. But I'm being very careful not to stretch the fabric when I'm doing this. I'm moving it very carefully with my fingers, because you don't want your sashing pieces to stretch. If they stretch, you'll end up with a ruffle instead of a sash. And here I'm just showing that I'm laying out my whole farmer block so that I know where all the pieces are going to go, and making sure, because I used some fabric that does have like little birds on it, I wanted to make sure all the birds were facing up, and the lemon tree was growing the right direction. The lemons weren't growing up, they were growing down, etc. So on this, you will put together each of the rows on the top, and then on the bottom, on the overalls, you'll put together the center piece, the overall piece, and then you'll put the 2 sides on to make the bottom row. And what I'm showing here is that you have these center pieces that you want to line up. The face and the bib, pocket, and the legs are all in the center, and you want to make sure that those line up, because if they don't, when you put your block together, it's going to look very strange. So here I'm showing, as you put these 2 pieces together to sew them, if you line up the seam from the legs with the pocket on the bib of the overalls and then pin, you'll end up with those pieces being nice and straight down the center. And you'll do the same thing when you go to sew all of your rows together. You'll have your face lined up with the bib. And here I'm just showing that you're putting together your 2 ends, finding the center, doing the same thing with the next row. So as you can see, this is put together the same way as you do with sashing. You want to make all of those rows centered on each other. And you'll find when you start making other quilts that there are times when you need to do this. And sometimes you'll look at something and you'll say, well, I don't have any seams to match up. How do I know where to put them together at? And that's when you're going to use this technique of finding the center and putting them together that way. So in this block, you don't have to worry about where your seams are because none of them match up, but you do want your centers to match. So that's what we're doing here. We're going to match that face up with where the, see, I'm matching where the seams are with the edges of where that pocket is. And I'm putting in a pin and putting in a pin on each end. And then I'll just sew it together and the block will be finished. That's it. Thanks so much.